good practice yesterday, I think, on both sides of the ball. Liked how we competed with each other. Thought that, when you put in the plan, sometimes Tuesdays are a little more thinking, but thought we reacted well and thought we had a good tempo and we're playing fast.
You said in previous weeks you've been practicing well. A lot of coaches say in a rivalry week that attention is even more focused. Has that been the case, or has it just been a continuation of
Well, I think it's been a continuation, but I also would agree that I think, when you're playing rivalry games, I think there's always a little more, intensity to it.
Do you do anything different in practice during a week like this?
Not really. I mean, no.
Now with the scout team, do they?
They know their role, so they practice hard.
How has the scout team been this year? Have you been pretty happy with that?
I think, it probably would have been a little better if we wouldn't have had some of those guys get dinged up early. You Wormley and Chris Bryant, and whether they'd be up or down. Just your ability with depth and those things. But I think they've worked hard. We give an award out every week to guys on each side of the ball, and then who in the kicking game does a great job giving looks. So, I think they're doing a good job. I think they're motivated. Our young coaches our GAs do a good job of trying prepping them, each week with watching film and mechanics and all that stuff.
Do you have them wear green or anything like that during the week?
Sometimes you do.
With the way Le'Veon Bell is size-wise, do you have a specific scout teamer being him this week?
No, I mean, Drake Johnson gets most of the heavy lifting, and then Fleet gets down there and runs some. But we don't have anybody of that size that you would, use for that.
There are a lot of expectations and accolades, associated with Taylor Lewan before the season began. Would you say so far with his play that he's lived up to those?
I think he's played pretty solid.
When you look at the secondary, obviously the rankings, they're like number 3 in the country in terms of statistics. Does that reflect how well they've played, or have they just not been tested enough that the numbers are reflected?
Well, I don't know if we've been tested, we haven't had balls thrown down the field vertically in a vertical pass game. I think this will, since early in the year.
You mentioned
Really Alabama,
Right.
to be honest with you, So I think that's all part of it, We're playing a lot of, spread teams that, want to use the bubbles and want to use those things. So I think that's a fair assessment. I think we haven't been tested yet.
Are you interested to see, kind of how that's? I mean, are there teams looming, or? Would
Sure. I mean, I don't know. I like the bubble screens and stuff like that.
Does it speak at least a little bit to what Thomas and Jordan have been able to do in the back end of limiting big plays and the experience?
Well, I think, and that's a big deal that's made all the time is, we want to be inside and in front. And that's a big part of it, whether you're playing two deep or you're playing single high. You've got to do a good job of, if you're the guy, you're going to keep your depth and be the last one to the party, so you limit those things. But I think those two guys have been a catalyst, and I think JT has improved every week.
You mentioned Wormley and some of the other guys. Are any of them even close to practicing? Are they still very in rehab?
Rehab, they're doing fine. I mean, some of them are at different levels.
Do you anticipate any of those guys even being able to practice by the end of the year?
Probably not.
How's Michigan State's defensive line been different without having a big presence like Worthy?
Well, I think they filled in pretty well. I think they're very aggressive, I think Ted Gill, their D-line coach, who was one of my coaches at Ball State in college, has done a nice job of developing that group, and a style of defense is such that it's an aggressive defense.
You mentioned that you have guys wear green sometimes.
At times, there's green out there.
Is that
We
happening
got,
this week?
We got the grass, field turf.